Good evening and welcome to the 2026 live event from the Business of Aesthetics, your dedicated partner in helping aesthetic practice owners build resilient, sustainable businesses where both your team and your patients thrive. Tonight's discussion, the empowered leader, coaching and developing high-performing aesthetic teams dives into the hidden operational and leadership drains that erode your profitability and peace of mind in an increasingly competitive market. I'm your host, Ashton Rogers, and alongside our incredible expert panelists, we'll uncover actionable strategies to stop the revenue leaks, elevate your team's ownership, and create a practice that actually builds your wealth. By the end of this hour, you will walk away with a clear blueprint to transform your practice from just busy to structurally healthy and deeply profitable. We would like to extend our gratitude to the sponsor of this event, Equa Marketing, one of the most trusted digital marketing organizations in the US and Canada, with over 18 years of experience and a dedicated client base of more than 500 healthcare practices. Before we dive into the main Q&A, a quick tip on behalf of our team at Equa. Let me ask you this. When potential patients in your area search for treatments you offer, does your practice actually show up? Or are they finding your competitors instead? This is a major challenge. You might be offering amazing services, but if you're not visible online, you're missing out. The good news, there's a fix. And if you stick around until the end, Equa has something special to help you take your online presence to the next level. Now, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our expert for the evening. Our speaker tonight knows what it's like to bridge the critical gap between medical precision and the art of traditional aesthetics. After over 30 years in the industry and authoring the number one Amazon bestsellers, Aesthetics Exposed, she realized that even the most talented providers can't build a profitable practice if the team isn't structurally aligned. Today, through her education platform, she empowers aestheticians and medical professionals to stop leaking revenue, step into leadership, and build high performing, resilient teams. Please welcome the owner of Aesthetic Expose Education, Terry Wojak.
Thank you, Ashton. Thank you for having me.
Happy to have you here, Terry.
I'm very excited.
Me too, right. So
All right.
before we jump into the Q&A with Terry, let's take a quick look at the main points for today's discussion on our screen. Our first goal today is establishing financial strength as a foundation because you cannot empower a team if the business is struggling to survive. From there, we'll explore mental resilience strategies to help your staff navigate demanding patient expectations. And finally, we will map out the path forward, ensuring you leave with a clear roadmap to foster self-leadership and drive measurable ROI. Now, let's dive right in to the Q&A. So, Terry, up on the chopping block, the first question.
Okay.
From your vantage point across clinics, educators, and practitioners, where are aesthetic practices most consistently misjudging the true cost of delivering treatments, particularly at the esthetician and service level?
I think it's pretty big where they misjudge because a lot of practitioners look at the cost of the product, sometimes the cost of the treatment, maybe the cost of the provider's time, but they're not looking at the room expense. They're not looking at the insurance, the paid time off, especially the other support staff. So, I mean, everything from front desk to marketing and really, everything that goes into that hour time frame that room is utilizing and that
Hmm.
esthetician is utilizing or the provider.
Hmm. Hmm. And Terry, why do you think so many highly intelligent practice owners turn a blind eye to these hidden costs until it's almost too late?
I think it just looks so easy on the outside. It looks like, I mean, everyone wants to open a med spa. It just looks like high profit, easy, easy money, but it's not. There's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of expense, and it's not for everyone.
Right. And then for to address a challenge, many owners fear that if they audit these costs, they'll be forced to raise prices and lose patients. How should they navigate that fear?
I don't think there should be a fear of raising prices. I do think if you're in, a competitive market, that raising the prices and having, your own value being higher is okay. But, I don't think that you should go into it thinking that you're going to have to raise the prices. I think that they should navigate that beforehand with, more of the business plan and, keeping their prices competitive, but also, knowing they can raise them when they get to that higher level.
And how can an owner start tracking this accurately tomorrow? Is there a specific formula or first step you recommend for calculating that true cost?
You know, there's no exact formula that I have, but it's just kind of taking into account, every little thing, like put everything into your business plan, obviously from front desk to reception to cleaning, to supplies, and making sure that you have every dollar written down and keeping track of like rebookings, percentages, new clients coming in the door. Like tracking everything is really where you're going to be able to find those dollars and you're going to be able to succeed.
Hmm. And the next question, many practices appear financially successful on the surface, but struggle underneath. What early patterns or signals indicate that a practice is busy yet structurally unhealthy?
Discounts, a lot of discounts. Yeah. So there are a lot of practices that will just continually discount or do Groupons and things like that, and that pretty much shows that they're struggling. Also high turnover, a high turnover with staff. That is, it pretty much shows that the practice isn't doing well. Clients not rebooking. I think that's huge. And obviously ratings, looking at Google ratings and things like that. But the high turnover and the constant discounts are the biggest signs.
And why is busyness such a dangerous metric for aesthetic leaders to rely on?
I think that it is because aesthetic leaders are usually very creative and they're usually very nurturing, but they don't have as much of the business mind. Whereas, so I worked for a facial plastic surgeon for 14 years, and he was, he basically, sorry, I just read from Bizarro. Now I got off track.
No, I mean, go on. I mean, that sounds like a nice story. I'd love to hear
No,
that.
so Dr. Diane, he kind of built his practice and he built training programs around business building for estheticians, business building for practices, business building for doctors. So he really started with like the plastic surgeons because he wanted to show he was really into marketing and he wanted to show business leaders, or the leaders in plastic surgery, dermatology, all of these fields, that they could do it if they turn their mind into more of a business mind,
And if you
and
were
if they
to
got that extra training.
Right, I see. And if you were to look at a clinic schedule or PNL tomorrow in itself, what is the exact leading indicator you'd look for to spot this structural unhealthiness?
In looking at what? I'm sorry.
In looking, if you were to look at a clinic's schedule or their PNL
Yes.
tomorrow, what is the indicator that their structural is pretty unhealthy?
Well, a lot of gaps in the schedule. Obviously, the more open it is, the more gaps, the more providers, more gaps. And the P&L, obviously, I mean, if you're looking at P&L and you're not your profits not there, then you have to reevaluate and reevaluate how much is, what is the salary that you're giving to your providers. What type of equipment are you investing in that you're not using? Is there equipment sitting in the corner, lasers? I mean, I can't tell you how many practices I've been in to train, and there are lasers, like $200,000 lasers sitting in the corner with dust on them because they buy it, they think it's the greatest thing. They put all their money into it right away, just like providers, and and then it doesn't end up being great. So, like with providers, I always say hire slow, fire fast. Um, and with, picking different devices, products, treatments, I think it's very important before investing in those to really go out and do your due diligence. And everyone gets excited about the next like shiny big device, like and then they go and buy it, and then they find out that there are three other companies that have the same device and one is much better for their practice. So always going, looking at three different options for every single device you're going to purchase, or if you're going to purchase a product line, really looking into three companies, doing your due diligence, and then choosing from there. Because too many people waste their money on products and services that aren't bringing back that revenue.
And how do you course correct a team that has become addicted to the chaos of being busy without realizing they aren't being profitable, right?
I mean, that one's hard because you just, I mean, with the team, you have to restructure, then you have to figure out like what treatments are not being profitable, because if you're busy, if the practice is busy, it should be profitable, and if it's not, then there has to be restructuring. There has to be goals, and if the goals aren't met, there has to be consequences. Um, I mean, it's just not. Yeah, they're going to need to change a lot of things. Their providers, the way they structure, maybe looking at their treatments too, like saying, okay, so this treatment brings in so much money and it takes a half hour, opposed to this facial takes an hour and a half and it brings in $150. And you know what I mean? So looking at that and kind of choosing treatments that way too.
Basically checking on how the ROI is for all of these.
Yeah, the ROI for all their services, so they can really hone in on the services that are bringing the dollars in.
hmm
And making sure there's not a particular provider that's bringing them down, because that can happen as well.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. And what long-held assumptions about pricing, productivity, or team value do aesthetic leaders most need to unlearn to lead sustainability today?
Well, I think the fact that a lot of providers are scared to raise prices, and I think that if they are scared to raise prices, they're not going to get ahead. Like everyone gets a raise, people get raises in their jobs. And if we're working and our value is there and we're providing those patients with the best value and the best work and the best products and services, then we should be able to get paid what we're worth.
And where did these outdated assumptions originate? And why are they so deeply ingrained in the aesthetic industry?
That you can't raise prices.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think people are scared, and it is a scary thing to raise prices. Every time I've raised, you get a little nervous, like, oh, what if my clients don't come back? Or what if I'm not worth it? Or, but you have to realize you have to put down your worth, and you have to figure that out into the calculations and make sure that you're getting paid what you're worth. Um, and I don't, the old school, I just think people, I just get a little nervous about talking about dollars and money, and they think they're not going to come back, but they will. I mean, your patients will, and your brand and your value are going to show. And if you have a higher luxury and brand, then you can charge higher luxury prices.
Hmm. And how exactly do you structure, let's say, a compensation or bonus model that rewards true value rather than just raw volume?
A bonus model?
Yeah, a bonus model.
Yeah. So bonus models, I really like because I think that I feel like people work towards, I mean, obviously people are going to work harder towards goals if they're being compensated for them. So if I, we always had goals set in place. So if somebody reached a specific percentage of retail to services, like 100% retail to services, they would get a specific percentage, or they would get a bonus at the end of the quarter. So I think that doing bonuses is the best way to go because you don't want to compensate for somebody that's not putting in the extra work and that isn't, you know what I mean, excited about doing their
Hmm.
job and really bringing in the patients and retaining the patients. And we do
Yeah.
want to reward the ones that are. We want to make sure that we're giving them, the benefits they deserve.
Hmm. Hmm. Right. And that's it's inevitable to have creative differences between the team, right? So when you change an established pricing or productivity model, team pushback is always going to be there. How do you handle a top producing aesthetician who resists the new system?
Who did resist the new system?
Yeah, or new pricing.
Oh, well, I mean, they kind of just have to, they, it's just, they have to go with it. And if they're the top producing esthetician, I mean, you just have to discuss with them why and show them the numbers and make them realize why you have to do this restructuring, and hopefully that you will, if they work hard they'll get these bonuses and they'll stay.
Right. And moving on to another question, a different topic. How does a lack of financial literacy, particularly around cost per treatment, limit a leader's ability to coach, develop, and retain high-performing aesthetic teams?
Well, I mean, it is because they don't have that if they don't have that financial vision, it's going to be very hard to coach someone else and to build up a team without that vision themselves. So I think that having group team meetings weekly, I think is very important. I think bringing in other providers to help in that sense, in the business sense. A lot of providers want more. They want to grow in their fields. So, giving them that opportunity to grow and do more in the business can help to grow the business. Um, yeah.
Mhm. Right. And why do we tend to separate clinical excellence from financial literacy in our training? And what is the psychological cost of keeping teams in the dark?
Okay. Can you say that one more time? The first part.
Oh, yeah. Why do we tend to separate clinical excellence from
Uh-huh.
financial literacy in our training? And what is the psychological cost of keeping teams in the dark?
Well, I think that training is the most important thing. And I think that investing in training is only going to help your clinic, whether it be business training, whether it be marketing training, but especially, treatment training, keeping your patient or your staff members up to date. I think that is very important. And just, the financial part. I think that it is if they're in the dark and they're not getting educated and they're not growing, the finances are never going to grow. I mean, it's just not going to be
Mm,
profitable.
yeah, yeah. And then how do you introduce this financial literacy to a creative or clinically focused team member without overwhelming them with let's say a spreadsheet and telling them to fill
Yeah.
this out, that out?
Well, I think you can make it a little more fun and engaging. So make them like contests and things, but give the numbers. you don't have to give them a spreadsheet, give them the numbers like, hey, your retention this week has went up 20%. This is great. Keep it going. And, just kind of doing those call outs and definitely pointing out when they're doing better, but not, yeah, not overwhelming them with a big spreadsheet, but helping them to grow themselves, help them make the goals as a leader and help them actually reach these goals as a leader, because the leader doesn't just tell somebody what to do. A leader helps them attain their goals.
Hmm. And some owners are terrified to share financial numbers with their team out of fear they'll demand higher pay. How do you debunk that fear?
You know what? That is tough too, because I always thought that, like, when I worked at the plastic surgeon's office, he would share the numbers, and I was like, why does he do this? These people, because then they would always be like, well, why does he make so much money? Why don't I have a raise? Why don't I have a raise? And I would think, and I'm like, do you understand the cost of this practice? Like, of having the practice, of everything that he's put into the practice, of the education that he's built to put into the practice, and they just don't understand that. They just see, okay, numbers coming in. If they see higher dollars, yeah, they want to get paid more. So it really is a fine line. I don't think you have to give every number, but I think that if each individual saw their own numbers, I think that that is fine too. But having specific goals, I think, is what really makes a difference. And of course, you want to have long-term goals for the business as well, but I don't think that, every person should know every detail of the business.
Mhm. Right. And then, can you share an example where understanding treatment level profitability changed how a practice trained, scheduled, or structured its aesthetic team?
I'll tell you about mine. So when I first started working at Dr. Diane's office, I was just hired to run his med spa. And when I got there, I decided, like, the first thing I did, I was there for a week and I did all the numbers. I took all the products. I mean, nothing was done on the esthetician side. And I found out that they were actually losing $5,000 a month on that side. So, you know, so what I did was I basically went through the treatments that were being done. I went through how much time that the room was being taken for the treatment that was being done, how much we were paying the esthetician for the treatment being done, and it was a lot. Like, we were losing a lot of money on the esthetician side, so I had to basically restructure, and I did have to let one person go. Um, and then the other estheticians, I changed their pay structure and they were not happy. But I gave them more of a pay structure where they could end up making more, but they had to reach goals. So that's how I made it work.
Hmm. And what is the very first operational change a practice should make to their schedule once they identify their most profitable treatments?
What should they change to their schedule?
Yes.
Um, well, I think they just need to make sure that they have room or time for the most profitable treatments, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. Like,
Hmm.
just making sure that they can have a room dedicated to, if neurotoxin or neuromodulators is the most popular treatment, then having a room dedicated, or maybe even a provider dedicated to that treatment. Um, Same thing with like microneedling or whatever it may be. If there's something that's a high profitability and a high retention rate, then they can grow on those services and maybe expand and take away some of the lower profit services.
Hmm. And like you mentioned before, patients are a core value of every practice, right? So
Yes.
if a clinic discovers their most requested treatment is actually their least profitable, how do they pivot their marketing and scheduling without upsetting their loyal patient base?
Well, I don't think you can at that point. I mean, I think they they need to introduce the more profitable treatment, obviously. But if there's a treatment that keeps the clients coming back, retention is key. And retention is, you know, if you have retention, you have a greater business. It takes 10 times more to get a new patient than to retain one. It takes like 10 marketing efforts. And so if you are retaining your patients, you know, even if it's a less profitable service, just make sure you're introducing those more profitable services to them. I mean, as long as you're not losing money and it's not, you know, obviously taking money away from the practice. But I think that that needs to be taken into consideration, the retention.
Right. Now, before you mentioned that Google reviews is something really important, right? So looking at it from that perspective, every practice the online presence is something super important, right?
Mm.
So for everybody joining us today and everybody watching, I've got a gift from Equa Marketing to everyone here tonight. A complimentary one-on-one marketing strategy meeting. Right. So as you can see on screen right now. Here's the question we'll answer for you. When someone in your city searches Botox near me, Morpheus 8 cost, or lip filler before and after, are you the practice that gets found, trusted, and chosen? So, when we look at this, in your strategy session, you'll sit down with a senior marketing analyst who already works with thriving aesthetic practices across North America. You'll get a live audit of how you can attract more clients, build your reputation, and grow sustainability. The marketing analyst will actually spend several hours researching your online presence, your competition, your local SEO, everything. And they'll come to the call ready to walk you through custom recommendations just for your practice. This session is designed to help you answer those questions and fix anything that's not quite working. It's a $900 session, completely complimentary for you tonight. You'll see a QR code on the screen. You can scan that with your phone to book your session or check the chat for a direct link. It takes less than a minute to book. Availability is limited since, as I mentioned, every audit involves real research into your market. So here's how to think about offers like this. What's the risk if you say yes? Honestly, just your time. There's no obligation whatsoever. But what's the risk if you don't? You might be missing out on something that could really help you grow your practice. So I'll leave that with you. But truly, I encourage you to grab this opportunity. Book your session with Equa. It'll be time well spent. Sounds like a good offer, right, Terry?
It does.
Right. Now, circling back to the next question. So, what are the most common financial or performance conversations leaders avoid having with their teams? And what are the downstream consequences when they do have these conversations?
So I think some of the things that they get scared to say to their team are that they're not retaining clients or that their retail to services down, or you know they're not busy enough. But if they're not communicating these things, then it's not going to get easier, it's not going to get better. So you know it needs to be communicated, or again, I like the goals and positive reinforcement. But if somebody's not performing, there has to be those conversations around it too, because if not, then your business is at risk.
Mhm. So, why do leaders naturally shy away from these specific conversations? Is it a lack of confidence or a desire to be liked?
You know, I think it's a little of both. I mean, it could be anything. It really, um, you know, maybe they're scared that the provider is going to leave and take their clients, or you know, maybe they're like you said, just a little nervous. They're like, oh, I don't want, you know, I don't. But usually, you know, when choosing leaders or managers, especially, and that's why you know, I don't like being a manager. Because it's just I don't like doing things like that either. Like telling people, I like telling them my main exciting things. So I like being like a leader, but I don't like being like the specific manager, if that makes sense. So hiring a manager to do those things is great. But definitely, I mean, if your business is at risk, you just have to get up the courage and talk to your providers.
Mhm, mhm. And now you mentioned that being a leader is being better than being a manager, right? So
Right.
can you give us a quick three-step script or framework, let's say, for initiating a tough performance conversation tomorrow morning? I know there's somebody listening here thinking, "Oh, I need to have this conversation." What do you have to say to them? A three-step process.
Okay. So, first I would say to them, let me think. So, first I would just say, I think we need to discuss your performance. And then I would definitely lead it with something positive. So anytime you're going to get bad news, lead it with something positive. So if they're great at something else, let them know, what your treatments have improved, so much. Or, you built 3 new clients last week. But unfortunately, your clients aren't coming back. And this is something that we need to discuss because retention is important. So is there something that you may, that we can talk about that you think may be happening why these clients aren't coming back to you?
Mhm. Right, that's a good answer. And what happens if you have this conversation, but the team member, let's say, becomes defensive or shuts down? How do you keep the dialogue constructive?
So, I mean, basically you just have to let them know that this is a business and we need to make sure it's profitable and we need to keep people coming back in the door because if they're not coming back then that's a reflection on our business. So we need to just figure out, we need to get to the bottom of why this is happening so that we can move forward and make sure that that her
Hmm.
job, that she's going to reach her goals as well.
Right. And when it comes to a business, it's all about the business, right? It's not a personal thing. So when you give
Yeah.
constructive criticism to somebody, it's not because you don't like them, it's because it's what's
Right.
good for the business,
Yeah.
right? So what to measure, prioritize, stop, or implement next?
I think tracking,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, tracking the revenue per hour, tracking rebookings are very important. Tracking retail to service ratio. That's one thing too, I think that is a big miss in aesthetics, aesthetic businesses is the retail portion. So way too many businesses come in and they'll buy like 10 different product lines and they'll have like 20, 30, 40, I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes of inventory in their shelf, but they're not selling it. And it is very important that, first of all, the clients have to leave with these products because it's important for their skin to heal correctly and for them to get the best results to have the most healthy skin. And it's also part of your profitability. And really, service to retail ratio, I mean, we had at one point like 110 retail to service ratio. So,
Okay.
I mean, it can be done. I mean, that was on the
Mm-hmm.
spa side. It wasn't like all because the medical treatments are a lot more
Yeah.
expensive, but um yeah, I mean, I think the retail aspect is very important as well, and that should be implemented in the goals.
Mm-hmm. And
It should be
you
part of the
meant,
goals.
yeah. Now you listed down a couple of things. So you mentioned that the need to stop doing a certain thing. So why is this often the hardest part of the equation, to stop doing something that you've already been doing for so long?
To stop doing what? I'm sorry. I didn't hear you.
Yeah. So before, when I asked that question, you mentioned to stop keeping inventory on the shelves, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So why
not
is it?
stop keeping inventory on the shelves. You definitely want inventory on the shelves, but
Yeah.
you want people to
Give it.
sell through it.
Yeah. You want the
Yeah.
people to have it, right? Not just leave them on the shelves.
Right. So yeah, you
Yeah.
can get inventory. I mean, first of all, you shouldn't buy, I mean, if you're just opening a practice, I mean, be careful how much inventory you're buying. You could buy different lines, but not a million of each product. Um, and when you do have the product, it needs to move because these products expire as well. When I first got hired at the doctor's office as well, and I was going through the books and everything, every single product on their shelf was expired. There were probably about $12,000 worth of products expired on the shelves.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And
So,
if
and that happens.
yeah, it does happen. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
why you need to like keep track of everything.
Yeah.
So if an owner only has time to implement one new measurement tool next week, let's say, what is the absolute non-negotiable metric? I know you said rebookings and stuff, but what's the non-negotiable that they should measure?
I would say cost per treatment then. Cost per
Mm-hmm.
treatment, the non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So everybody listening here tonight, cost per
Like
treatment.
revenue per treatment
Mm-hmm.
would be top, but I do think rebookings are really important too because you're not going to survive if those clients aren't coming back. One
Mm-hmm.
unhappy client typically tells 10 people, a happy client typically tells one. So if you are out there and not, people aren't getting good services and they're not coming back to you and they're telling other people, the business isn't going to survive.
Mm-hmm. True, true. And now, like going back to the topic of you mentioning being a leader, not a manager. But when you introduce new things and when you're trying to be a leader, some team members will think, oh, it's just another management facade, right? So implementation fatigue is going to be real for you. So how do you roll out these new priorities without making your staff feel like it's just a management fad?
I think just getting the others involved and making room for growth for everybody. I mean, it doesn't have to be a management role, but maybe it could be like a clinic leader or, someone who develops the protocols. A strategic protocol planner, like somebody, whatever their strengths are, like kind of expand on that and working with them instead of just, okay, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. You know what? Great job. You did this today. Oh, I saw your client rebook. That's amazing. How can I help you keep that going? Like leadership, like working with them, not just bossing people around and telling them what to do.
Hmm. Hmm. So
And
if a
even giving educational opportunities for them, like letting them lead. So one thing we used to do is we started a thing where we gave every esthetician the opportunity to teach a class to the other estheticians on stuff they were excited about. And it was really fun and everybody really loved it and they felt empowered. So things like that are really nice too.
sometimes you need to make the team members feel like they're leaders too, in some sort
Yeah,
of way.
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's important as well. So, if a practice leader wanted to strengthen both profitability and team performance immediately, what single financial habit or discipline would you prioritize first?
Profitability and team
Performance, yes.
performance. Um,
Tricky question, huh?
yeah, it is. I would say proper training on the right treatments and services. So if somebody is properly trained, if your team is properly trained and trained on, you know, how to do the services correctly, how to do them to the best of their ability. They're going to have the retention coming back in. So they're going to have the profitability and they're going to have that great team that's going to work together because they're getting educated and they're building that like camaraderie and they want to grow together.
Mhm, mhm. Right. So, why does this specific habit have such a profound ripple effect on the overall culture of the practice?
It just, it people love it. Like, I mean, that's what I do. I'm a trainer, and when I go in and educate, I mean, they just get excited again. Like people get excited about their job again. People want to do whatever I'm training on. If I'm training on a product line, that product line starts selling for the next couple months, because they get excited about it again. And it just gives it's team building, it's creating more value in their job, it's giving them something to look forward to. And I think that education is always going to help to grow the practice.
And
I
I
just
know,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, no, go ahead, tell me.
Oh, I was gonna say I just did a talk for VO Med Spas, and they
Mm-hmm.
do trainings for their companies for all of their providers. They do national trainings, and I think that is so amazing because their providers were so knowledgeable and they were all very excited, and you could just tell they were excited to be part of that team.
And you being a trainer, I know there are some things that you implement into practices, but as soon as that practice gets busy, everything that's gets thrown to the wayside. So how does an owner actually systemize these habits so it doesn't fall by the wayside when the clinic gets busy?
Well, they have to keep them scheduled. So I think quarterly trainings are good. Even monthly, if they're doing the staff trainings, like to do them once a month because they're typically like an hour. But to implement like a quarterly training on something that, is one of their more profitable services, something that, the providers are excited about, and just
Hmm.
implement a training every quarter and
Hmm.
keep that time scheduled so that something will be
Hmm.
there.
Maybe that, right. So for aesthetic business owners leaving this session, what one leadership action would you encourage them to take immediately to empower their team?
Um, I would say meetings, like weekly meetings, are
Hmm.
very important. Um, weekly meetings and kind of going through giving the providers goals. So with those meetings, giving goals, keeping up with the providers to make sure they're reaching their goals. And I think that really helps. It's really like, it's building the team, having the confidence in the team, and then investing back in the team. I feel like is really what's going to give a great business. Because when you have happy providers, you have happy patients, you have a better business. And when you don't have happy providers and they're not getting paid enough or they're being treated poorly, you're not going to have a successful business.
And with the multiple practices that you've trained over the years, what is the biggest pitfall an owner might face when trying to execute this action, and how can they avoid that pitfall?
So I think it's just not putting the time into the providers, not really realizing their worth. And I think just investing their time back in them is really how they avoid it. Just making sure that they have those trainings, that they have time for meetings. If somebody has questions or if they say, "Hey, I need additional training on something," get them that additional training. Because I can't tell you how many practices I've seen where, I mean, unfortunately, they'd be like, "Terry, we've been asking for trainings on this for years. Thank God." Like they want advanced training. They want to learn about these things and they want people to invest in them and give them goals and help them reach their goals, not only financially but personally.
Everybody wants to grow. That's the end goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So that was actually the last question of the evening for today. So before we wrap things up, what's the final key takeaway you want everybody to go home with? The insights you've shared tonight have been phenomenal. We've covered everything from uncovering the true cost of treatments to having those critical avoidant conversations. And before we wrap up, I want to ask you for one final thought. If you had to summarize the mindset of the truly empowered aesthetic leader of 2026 in just one sentence, what would it be? You can think
Value
about it.
your I know. Value your team, I would say. Value your
Well,
team and invest in your team.
amazing, amazing. And what a powerful way to end. Thank you so much, Terry, for your time and expertise tonight. For our
Thank you.
audience, if we didn't get to your specific questions in the chat, our team will be reviewing them and reaching out to you. Thank you, Terry. And before you log off, remember that empowerment starts with knowing exactly where your practice stands in the market. Do not miss out on Equa's marketing complimentary 900 marketing strategy meeting. The link is in the chat and the QR code is on the screen right now. Scan it and you can book that session. So, booking your session and start plugging those revenue leaks. So, finally, as you exit the webinar, a brief feedback survey will pop up on your screen. Please take 30 seconds to fill it out. Your feedback is how we continue bringing you these higher level events. To everyone, thank you for investing and are in practice success. Have a wonderful night. And here's to building aligned, profitable, and empowered teams. Good night, and thank you, Terry, once again.
Thank you.
Okay, see you.
Bye.